So if you visit mathworks.com/academia/student competitions/best robotics, or if you just Google best robotics MATLAB software request, this will be the first thing that comes up on the Google search. You can click request software, and then within 3 business days, you should expect to get an email. As a coach, you only have to request this one per team, and then you share that license that's sent to the coach to all students. And then all students and mentors related to that team that would be working towards that competition are welcome to use that free software license and link it to their personal accounts. Then each individual student could create a MATLAB account and link their license to it to be able to use their own online software or download and install on their local computer. You do have to, in order to do the full-blown software, you have to have a Microsoft computer. It doesn't work on Macs or Chromebooks, but the browser version does work with any browser. So you can use a Chromebook or other devices to just work within the browser.
And the web version is exactly what you can use for your team to meet the expectations on the engineering notebook rubric. Now, please note it's important to go down to where it says complementary software so that you can get to the right area where you don't have to pay for your license.
Right.
This can also be accessed through the registry under the software license area in the team workflow. So you can get to it a couple of different ways, but just make sure that that it says the complementary software area. So after you've gotten your key, Charles, where are we going to go next?
And then this page in general has other resources. Those are being updated actively for this upcoming season, but I want to sign in to MathWorks. So I'm at mathworks.com and I'm gonna sign in. And then I already have my password saved, so hopefully this thing will sign in without me having to type things in.
And it's important, students and coaches, that your team members use their Best Inc. email that they have signed up that was used to create their avatar for the registry account, not a
Right.
personal Gmail or iTunes or whatever account. We want them to use their Best Inc. account.
Right. So whatever email they use to do their registration process within Best
Yes,
Registry, try to use that email on the software.
perfect.
And then I'm going to click my little name up here and go to my account. If I had just gotten an email, it would direct me to this to create a username and log in to mathworks.com. And then I would need to link an additional license. I've had licenses in the past, like last year, so it still has that like lingering up there that had expired. But I just added an additional license and then copied and pasted the information that I received from my coach that requested the free software license. And then that's set up there. So I could download this to my computer if I had a Microsoft device to install that in and then run it on my computer. But I'm going to assume that I'm using a Chromebook and I don't have the software installed on a local device. So I'm going to use the online version and I could click MATLAB off to the side here to be able to get to that. I'm on my MathWorks account page. Or whenever I had logged in to just mathworks.com, up in the top right, I can see my initials that I'm logged into my account. I can click MATLAB there. And then it brings me to this, I guess, MATLAB menu for online training resources. They have different like Simulink on-ramp courses. There's self-paced courses that you can go through and get like a certificate at the end that says you've completed those courses. That's just if you want to build up your general skills about Simulink and MATLAB in general. And specifically for trying to show some simulation for a robot to be able to document in my notebook and earn points towards my notebook and things like that. I'm going to go to Open MATLAB Online. I'm not installing anything on my local computer. I'm just running this within the browser. Open MATLAB Online. And then I'm just going to continue with this in this window. And then I'm going to accept anything that it asks rights to for me to be able to open this up in my browser. And then it's opening up the MATLAB software just as if I installed it, but it's working on like a virtual machine within the browser, I guess, instead of me installing it on my local computer. It does run faster on here than it does on the one that I've installed on Microsoft devices. And then when you install add-on packages and things like that, it seems like it does install faster than if I was using a local computer. But it is kind of running a little slow right now on this. Just have to give it a minute to open. And it seemed like it opened up quicker earlier when I had opened this up, but maybe since I had opened it and closed it back out, it's taking a little longer this time.
Now that there was a relaunch to update note that came up. So we clicked it to relaunch, and then the workspace command windows and everything opened after we did that. So there must have been an update on the web. So take note, if it's taking a long time, look up in the top right corner and see next to your icon for your account if it says anything about relaunch to update. So now that that's loaded, Charles, where are we going next?
So in order to do anything other than working in MATLAB to use like some Simulink add-on packages, I'm going to go to add-ons and explore add-ons. And then I already have the ones installed on my software here, but the way I found them was just searching up in the corner. I went to Robotics Playground. And then there is this one that's already installed. Then there's also an expansion pack that has other, I guess, capabilities or other tutorials. But I'm going to keep it simple and just use this one for now, Robotics Playground. And then it said to install it over here, but I had already installed it. So right now it just says open folder. So under add-ons, I've already installed it. If I go to manage add-ons, it's opening over here on the side. Explore add-ons. I'm just going to click open folder on this playground. Thought it would open up over here on the side, but I don't see it immediately. There's a ridiculous amount of things installed. So instead of skimming through that, I just went back to it.
So that would
Open
be an
folder.
easier way is just go to add-ons, type in robotics playground and launch it from there.
There it is. So add-ons, manage add-ons, and then you can search right here once it's been installed.
Perfect. Now, are there
And then
any other
open
type of
folder.
add-on? Okay, there you go.
To be able to get the simulation of a robot driving around on the screen and just doing simulations, you don't need any other add-ons.
Okay.
And then there's a view getting started guide and open folder. I'm going to try this view getting started guide. And then this has a description of what all is included in this. There's some links down here to get to other apps and open up more examples. And then there's documentations down here about how to use all of the different things that are within these tutorials. So just get a robot simulated and driving around on a robotics field. I'm going to go to Open Robotics Playground app. So that was about halfway down the page. And then just click it and let it load for a minute. And then you can try opening up these different examples. I'm going to do open or obstacle environment. Click it one time and then just wait for it to open. It did turn blue once I clicked on it. So if I take my mouse away, it's blue still. So I assume that means I have actually clicked on that button. But I don't see any other kind of update that says it's loading. Nothing down here at the bottom is really giving me any information. So hopefully it's still opening. When I clicked out of that window, it kind of minimized. So I can expand with this little down arrow to get it back or minimize it to get it out of the way. And then there's a pin. So then once I pinned it, I can't minimize it. It'll stay there on top or unpin it.
That's a nice little tip to know so that you don't lose that little sidebar.
Yeah. And then down here in the bottom right, I did notice that you can click through different windows. So if a window was hidden or something, like a window's behind a window, In the bottom right, you could navigate to see what your different windows are that you have opened up in this app, because you can open up several apps and different add-on package menus, and they could just be piled all on top of each other. And then if you minimized all of them, you could do restore all and get them all to pop up into this window again. So it looks like
Hey,
it finally loaded.
can
And
you
then
show
because I
that?
clicked,
Can you show that us where that is just one more time, where you found that down in the bottom right corner?
so bottom right corner, there's this little tiny tab, and I click on this little Windows icon, and it's got the different windows that I have open. So I can toggle between them. And if they had all been, I guess, minimized, they appear to have disappeared. Like there's nothing to even click on that I can see. But now it has two windows down here letting me know that I have those minimized and they're hidden right now. And I could restore all of them to get them all back up into my area to use. And then if you click out of the windows, it seems like sometimes they're disappearing and sometimes they're not. But you can click the little up arrow to turn it into this little collapsed version or expand it back open if you want.
Okay, so
But
the it's important to kind of look at the different bars that show up on your window to make sure that you can are seeing everything. That's
right.
good to know.
And then in the background, I still have that guide, the getting started guide is still open back there that I can reference. So if you need to minimize this and go back to this to see what the other resources are, just click in the bottom right and restore all to get them all popped back up. And then you can maximize whichever one you're working in to work on. And then this is right now zoomed way out. If it was like off the screen partially or zoomed anywhere, if I click anywhere in this canvas empty space and hit the space bar, it will auto fit everything that's in that canvas to be able to, or that working space to be able to see what exists there. So you don't have to work on zooming and moving stuff around, just hit the space bar. And then
That's
this
an
is set up
awesome
with some
tip.
sensors. The sensors I'm not really worried about right now. I'm going to ignore that. And I have a two-wheeled robot on obstacle environment that's got some obstacles laid out. And then I have this little dial here. They're calling it a knob. If you were looking in the library to add this to your uh, what is it? Simulink simulation file here. You would be able to find that within the library called a knob. I know that that's called that because when I put my mouse over it, it highlights and lets me know what the name of that object is there. But whenever I run the simulation, I'll be able to push and pull this around to like negative full speed, positive full speed to be able to control these different motors. And then I can just explore with them to see how it behaves up here. This is set up right now with this user interface, the knob, but you can also put sliders, or you can make it to where you just manually typed in numbers rather than using a slider, or you can use an Xbox controller or a Logitech game controller that's, like a USB device you can plug into your computer. And they have tutorials on here to show you how to use those as input instead. So you could drive this simulated two-wheeled robot around the field using a game controller instead if you wanted to. As far as I know, it doesn't work with the Vex controllers, the Vex products that you use for your actual robot, but they do work for other uh, USB or Bluetooth controllers that you can hook up to your computer. And then I haven't changed anything or coded anything. I just opened up this example and I'm going to hit run up in the top right. I'm currently in this simulation tab. There's a bunch of different tabs up here in the menu. I'm in simulation and I'm going to click run. And then it should open up this obstacle environment, this simulation environment, and then I should be able to use these user inputs to drive the robot around on the field. It says compiling down on the bottom, so it does give me a little update to let me know how far it is in the progress of getting this open. And it's opening up another window, so now I have another window on top of my window that was already maximized. You can click in between these different sections and drag them bigger to be able to see different parts. I'm kind of most interested in this full field view. And then I can click and hold my scroll wheel if I'm using a mouse. Scroll wheel lets me kind of rotate the view. But I want to see if I can drive this robot around in the field. And then I'm going to click back here to be able to control it. The problem is when I click that window, it hid my other window because this one's maximized and taking up the whole view. If I do restore or minimize, I could get that smaller. But my goal is I want to be able to control both. I want to be able to control these user inputs and see what's happening in the simulation at the same time. So I'm just gonna kind of move these around to stack them to where I could get to that. And remember, I can hit
And
space bar to fit this to the screen. And
and
then,
during this process, students can take screenshots of these windows using a
right,
either their camera or their device
right,
screenshot app, showing the different stages that they're going through and the changes they've made to the knobs for the direction of the motors, those type of things, correct?
right. I'm on a Windows computer right now. If I hit Windows Shift S, it should let me take a screenshot and then I can do the snippet tool pops up if I hold down Windows Shift S on a Windows computer. Other devices have a similar shortcut that you can look up to be able to do a screenshot or a snippet is what it's called on Windows computers. But Windows Shift S, I can grab a screenshot of this, just highlight the part that I want to keep, and then it will save it to my pictures folder, and I can put that into my notebook documentation and show how I'm progressing on doing simulations for this year's game. And so my robot is actually moving right now. The simulation's running, and there is a value being sent to the motors. You can see it barely, it's just running into the wall and kind of crashed into the wall. But I can move these to go full forward. This is controlling the left and right wheel. And I'm going to try to get these up a little further.
And you
Mm,
don't need to turn anything off or on in making changes. You were just making changes to those dials and watching the simulation window and the
right,
robot moving. But you could
right.
take another screenshot of that and show the robot in a different position and the positions that you've had the knobs moved into. And I've also noticed that the right velocity and the left velocity numbers in those boxes have changed as you've changed the knobs, showing what the has been assigned to the motors,
Oh,
which
okay.
is a
So
neat
right here,
feature.
this
Yes.
is being updated live. The C, I guess, was
Yes.
just like a variable number, a parameter value sitting there, just a placeholder. And then once I
Yes.
actually put an input to it in the simulation, it's giving me that constant value. C was probably for constant.
That would make sense.
And then I have the left motor full speed forward right now and the right motor full speed backwards. And my robot's just spinning in a circle. So this gives me an idea of what I'm controlling on that screen. And then I'm just running this within my browser. So this would work on any device, the browser. I'm using a Chrome browser. And then you could go through tutorials to get into like how to use the sensors and things that are on this and embedded in the robot. But I was just trying to show the basics of just get the playground open and play with those dials that are on there. And this has been around for a while. It says 2018 at the bottom. So this is nothing new. And the sky's the limit. You can go in and customize the obstacle environment here and put more obstacles or change the size. Let me hit stop real quick on this. Stop on the simulation. And then I'm gonna hit space bar to refit this to the window. And then on this obstacle environment, I'm gonna double click it and it brings up the menu for what I can do with this obstacle environment. I have things like where the obstacles are positioned in relation to like an XY axis on this playground environment here, the obstacle environment. And you can add on, there's an enable and disable to turn on more or less obstacles. So you could kind of change the size of those to fit what your obstacles are that you're going to be working on this season. You can change the arena size. It is in meters rather than in feet. In general, the game rules describe the field being in feet, but you could convert that to meters and then change this to be a representation of the actual size field that you would be working on for the competition season. And
Charles,
then there's also some values you can change for the wheel size and kind of simulate how fast your robot would drive based on some motors being used and the different size wheels, but you need to convert the size to meters rather than inches or feet.
Charles, on the right side, there's three dots.
Right
What
here,
happens if you click? Yeah, what happens if you click on that?
it just says
Okay, so
create variable.
Is it all create variable? Okay, I was
Yeah,
wondering if it might be settings to change the measures, but totally students can look up what inches are to convert to meters and then put that in there,
right.
and explain that in their notebook as well, of
And
the way
then,
that they had to change things. So they could actually check out their gear ratios and their speed on
right,
this for the robots if they know how large their wheels are going to be, and the distance between, which
right,
is another neat feature of using Simulink. They just have to remember to take pictures and then write about it in their notebook.
right. And then I'm assuming that this is correlating to kind of the speed, like by default, of what the large motors would be in Best Robot, but it doesn't say whether it's a large motor, small motor, or what the gear ratios are. But it's probably a close comparison of what you would expect with the large or small motor, or maybe somewhere in between. But you could also compare it. You could run this at full speed and compare yours and compare the two data sets with the same size wheel. And that would give you something to kind of start with of whether or not this would be a good simulation as is, just without changing any settings. And then within these blocks, any blocks in here, you can double click and it will bring up a description of that block, what the parameters are that you can put in for their input ranges and kind of play with those.
You
There's
could
also a
even
help.
name them, which is
Yes.
really good.
And then that's a good starting point, I think, right there, just playing with those and take some screenshots and see what you can do as far as simulating a robot and maybe even building a field. And then the sky's the limit, I guess, as far as you want to go. I'm gonna hit the X up in the top right, not in the top right of my browser, but within this Simulink model. See what that gets me back to. I'm gonna go ahead and close this out. But within this, there's tons of resources that have been built up within the last 10 years, and you can kind of go through these to build up your skills. But I know it's possible to get your robot model uploaded into it and then even upload models of the field and game components or just a game component if you wanted to simulate how a claw interacts with a specific size game element. And it even does physics simulations as far as like how much the thing weighs and how it falls with gravity and the friction interactions of things. So you can go as far as you want with it, but you can also just keep it simple and do a simulation and work on maybe pathing of your robot driving around and simulate that to put into your notebook.
And so all teams just doing that pathing piece that we modeled for you will meet the minimum points that you could earn for using the Simulink model. The better your description and pictures and talking about how it would relate to your regular robot, the real robot, the physical robot that you're building, and your tasks will increase that score value for using the simulation and the Simulink um, program.
Great.
I think this is great, Charles. So, how do you quit? How would you go out of here and quit?
So it looks like everything's already stopped. Then up in the top left, I'm going to try this close. I'm not sure what that does. I think it closed out all my windows. So my windows disappeared that were in the bottom right. So now everything's closed out. If I wanted this to be open the next time I open the software with my login, I could just leave it there. If I log into a different device, it should pop up and bring the same stuff I have open up here. Or if I want to have a blank screen when I come back and just a blank, MATLAB software open, I could close all these things out. And then up in the top right, I could just do sign out or exit MATLAB if I want to go back to my user account information, but stay logged into the MathWorks. Uh,
Excellent.
it took a while to get back, but just closing out MATLAB got me back to this menu, and then I could go through and check out online tutorials or other resources that are in here. And then I guess if it's a shared computer, you might want to sign out of your account so somebody else doesn't mess with your software if you have different users using the same computer login. And again, I didn't install anything. All I did was get access to my license, link it to my personal account that I had created, and I used the same email address that I use within the Best registry system, so that that's all tied together. And logged in and clicked on MATLAB, and then opened up the add-on package, opened up the folder for Robotics Playground, and I was able to click through and get all that playing. And just within a browser, it's not device specific.
Great. Excellent tutorial.
Awesome.